seek first to understand. How do we make that a reality? Well, in my experience, I start by accepting that, you know, a lot of the time I'm going to make mistakes. Like with my partner at the moment, we're really practicing polarity. We're practicing the acceptance around conflict, and the acceptance that there are going to be times where shadow elements come into play. There are going to be times where there's projection. There's going to be times where things are taken personally. So there's really a container of forgiveness and a container of acceptance. But there is a desire to use self-awareness so practically when noticing that in any given moment, what is being shared is being taken personal. Or there's a mechanism of wanting to express your reality, of wanting to try and create, like ironically create understanding by sharing a point of view rather than trying to understand the other person, right? So there's this like desire to be understood rather than to understand. Both of these qualities kind of interlink, right? Because the more that you actually put energy into understanding the person you're in conflict with, the more evidence you're going to get that can then help you understand where they're coming from. I've yet to experience a fallout or a disagreement or an argument or a conflict with my partner that isn't actually based in kind of love and togetherness. That usually there's like a real innocence behind the actual core motive. God, you know, in my relationship, it's just a case of firstly getting over myself, right? I've got to let go of being right. I've got to let go of having my perspective seen and validated and affirmed first and foremost. Harmony is the goal, right? If I'm in a situation and I'm trying to express, I want to be understood. When I'm triggered, that comes across as justifying, and that's quite a rigid, closed energy behind that. I'm trying to justify, I'm trying to explain. The intention is to create understanding, but it can create distance, right? Because I'm explaining, and you know, if I'm triggered, then I can be really harsh in that explanation, or direct in that explanation. So I'm sending an outward energy, and then for my partner, it can feel like that outward energy is conflicting with what she's trying to express. So the actual desire to create understanding is coming from a I'm going to be understood energy, not I'm going to understand. One is centered in ego, and it's not it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It's admirable. You know, there's an innocence behind that, but it's still centered in here's my view in it, and I want it to be affirmed. I want it to be understood. Whereas when you think I want to understand, there's a lightness around, okay, right, well, here's the thing. Maybe I'm upset. Maybe I feel misunderstood. But can I shift into curiosity? Can I start to think, well, maybe there's something I'm not quite seeing in the way that this person's arrived at their point of view? In my own blind spots, in my own behavior, like could it be that I've done something without the intention of causing harm that has caused harm, right? And this is like a number one cause of like fallout, in the sense of I didn't mean to upset someone, and then there's frustration around when that upset happens. But ultimately, even if you don't mean to upset someone, if your behavior is interpreted in a certain way and you love that person, you care for them, then you'll do what you can to understand how that behavior has impacted that person, and what you can do to, I want to say make amends, but the offering that you can give to create understanding, right? When invited to do so. So really this distinction between wanting to be understood and wanting to understand is one that allows the heat and the sense of conflict to dissipate. Because if you think of like conflict as 2 points of view that are held in place energetically through different emotions, through triggered emotions, frustration, sadness, anger, whatever that may be, the conflict, the clashing of horns, right? The kind of point of impact is when those two points of view are being held onto. Now instantly, if both people are trying to be understood, boom, right? I'm trying to be understood, I'm trying to be understood, boom. I'm not being understood, I'm not being understood, boom. Separation, right? This is creating more distance, it's creating a feeling of being against each other, not with each other, trying to work something out. The moment that one person, now you cannot energetically sustain this mechanism if one person decides to try and understand and be understood. I'm trying to be understood, I'm trying to be understood, I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to be understood, I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to be understood, I'm trying to understand, oh wait, that person's trying to understand me. I've got a space, I've got a container to be understood. Right? So you're moving towards harmony, you're moving towards togetherness. There is a level of discernment in this, I'm trying to understand, in the only from an open heart space, only when you're on the same side, when you're not conflicting energetically, can you truly be understood. So it's not that you have to neglect your needs, it's not that you won't have a space, and that obviously depends on the relationship. Like, I trust my partner in the sense that there will be a desire to understand and be understood in both of us, and we can both inquire, we can both, when things settle and when there's more heart-centered communication, then from a place of I want to say surrender really, or a place of humility, there can be an inquiry, like, oh, can I ask a question? Like, why, or what did I do to create this feeling in you, or this insecurity? Could I have handled that better? What could I have done? At what point? And you can see that all of these questions, they have an element of risk, at least to the ego, because you're kind of having a willingness to have something reflected that might be uncomfortable. You know, that might be certain behaviours that aren't self-serving or aren't as loving or compassionate as you would like. So there's a self-image element to this stuff, but the humility is to want to move towards love and want to move towards harmony. And, you know, in my experience, more often than not, if you can shift your energy into I want to understand rather than I want to be understood first, that's the first step, then you shift the energy of conflict into one of curiosity, into one of humility, into one of, okay, I actually want to work towards mutual understanding, rather than a more self-centered, I'm going to dig my heels in and be understood. There's space for that, there's compassion for that. I do all the time. My pride can get in the way, and I can really just put being understood at the forefront. And you can have two people that have the intention to love each other, that have the intention to create closeness, that have the intention to be compassionate. But when this I need to be understood mechanism, I need to be seen mechanism, when that's at the forefront, it's counterintuitive. It moves people away from each other. So if we can have the willingness and the courage to surrender the need to be understood and instead seek to understand, we're actually going to move towards what the core motivation is. Sounds counterintuitive, but if you can reach into the heart of the person that you're in conflict with, if you can make that the priority ahead of being understood, I promise you that eventually the understanding will be there, because it works both ways, right? There'll be an openness, a relaxation, and you know, your partner or whoever you're in conflict with will start to share, and you'll be like, oh, now I'm understanding. I'm understanding the way in which I'm understood, right? So it works both ways. I haven't spoken about relationship stuff in a while, and I wish to do more so, because I really feel like a conscious relationship is a catalyst for growth. When you're really learning the lessons, when there's a lot of humility, and when there's a shared intention to grow through the relationship.